So, welcome back to Kingston. Nice to see you here, Paul. I can recognize almost most of the faces, but there are also some new ones. So, welcome. Where you are coming from. So, for people who do not know me yet, I am JC-Nebel, but people call me JC. It's easier for everybody. And I'm the person who is coordinating the final year project. So today what I want to do is to remind you what is expected from you for that project. Particularly, I will focus on the assessment of that project. For people who are not quite sure about the type of projects they will pick, I will define in more details what are the three types of projects and what are the pros and cons and the expected strengths of each of them. And then I will tell you more about the proposal that is expected from you in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Since the deadline is quite close, I think this session is quite important. And if you have any question, feel free to interrupt, raise your hand, because that needs to be sorted out very quickly, because in a couple of weeks, I will be receiving your work and we will start getting you marks. Okay? So we want to do it well. Okay. So I am the project coordinator. However, your first point of contact is your supervisor. Okay? So everybody must have been allocated a supervisor. Many of you chose a supervisor during the time allocated for the selection of supervisors. Others were allocated a supervisor. If you don't know who your supervisor is, or if you haven't been allocated a supervisor, please come to me at the end of the lecture, because we really need to get that sorted today. Okay? We cannot wait more, there's no time to waste. So your first point of contact is your supervisor. However, I know that sometimes the interaction of the supervisor is not always smooth. Okay? And in that case, if there is any issue or your supervisor is not answering emails or whatever, that's the time to speak to me, and I will try to sort things out for you. Okay? But please contact your supervisor first, because if the 200 of you go to me, there will be a long queue. Yeah? The best way to contact me is really to send me an email. I'm quite good, and for those who know me, I tend to reply very quickly. So first of all, I would like to redefine what final year projects are for people who are new and for people who have forgotten. Just to remind you that there is a team at the back who is filming this lecture, so you will find it on YouTube in a couple of hours. So in case you have missed something, or a friend of you couldn't come, or you want to go back to the lecture, the material will be available the link will be in the study slides. Okay? So for me, the final year project is really the pinnacle of your academic achievement. Okay? That's an opportunity for you to showcase your skills and expertise. Okay? And that's what most of your future employers will be asking you about. Okay? When you are going to have a job, what was your mark in IT Toolbox in first year? Okay? They don't know what IT Toolbox is, and they don't really care, to be honest. Yeah? They will have, obviously, your grades, so they will know what type of students you are, if you have a first, 2-1, 2-2, or third. But they're not, it's unlikely they will be going in that level of detail. What they are really interested in is, what are you able to do with the skills, the expertise that you have gained during your time at Kingston. Okay? And the best way to do that is to speak about your project. Yeah? So it's for employers, also it's for postgraduate programs, if you want to do a research, a PhD, for example, or carry on doing a master and specialized. Again, the project will show a bit about your motivations. Okay? And obviously, the title of your project is likely to be on your CV. Okay? So at least for the first few years of your career, you will be that website guy, okay, or image processing or networking guy who did something on a topic or another. Okay, so it's quite important when you choose the topic of your project, because it's not just to get a mark this year, it will have some impact on the coming years. Okay, so more practically, a final year project is a major piece of work. Okay, it's a 30 credit module, so we are expected to work at least 300 hours on the project. Many students work more than that, and they perform well. Some students do a bit less, and the marks are often not very high. So which means, in a nutshell, you are expected to work 10 hours a week, every week, on that project. So how many hours have you worked on the project this week? You are expected to have done 10. Okay, so we are towards the end of the week, so you should be around 8 hours already. Okay? So that should give you an idea if you are already behind or not. Okay? I mean, I know that some of you worked very hard during the summer on the project. We have quite a lot of research and so on. So it's okay if you didn't do much this week. But for the others, you are starting to fall behind. And it's 10 hours every week, so you cannot say, yeah, rest for 1 month, because then it's really hard work. Okay? I know many students who didn't have much winter holidays. Yeah? So obviously you have had many modules, you have learned many techniques and so on, but that's the first time. It's not just an exercise, a small piece of coursework. It's a major project, and all the things you have learned are going to come together. Okay? And that's going to be the first time maybe you are doing that. It's likely, at least for the younger of you, to be the largest project so far that you will have completed in your life. Yeah? What is important also, it's an independent project. So obviously you will have a network of support, which can come from academia, your friends, your family, and so on. But at the end of the day, it's an independent piece of work. It's not group work. Yeah? And it's also an original piece of work. So it's something new. It's not retaking something that someone else has done. And very importantly, you are the manager of that project. The supervisor is not your manager for that project. They are providing support. You are the one making the decision. So at the end of the project, you have to deliver something. Okay, so that's what a project is about. There is a delivery. And hopefully, you will be working on something you are interested in. Because you are going to put quite a lot of hours, efforts, a lot of headaches, and if it's something you are really not interested in, that will be very difficult to keep yourself motivated. Okay? So you should keep that in mind as well, that you should be excited about what you are going to achieve at the end of your project. And obviously the project is coming from you, so you choose the project. So you cannot say, yeah, I don't like the project, but my supervisor asked me to do that. No, it's coming from you. Okay. Another important point is that generally the project has a client. So a client is someone, an organization, which has a problem to solve, and you are the IT specialist, the information system person, the computer scientist, the software engineer, who is going to face that person and that organization and say, I'm going to help you to solve your problem. Okay? So that's what the client is. And generally, a good project has a client. Okay? I will go back on that a bit later on. So since you have a client, it's the opportunity to create something useful for someone else, for a community, for an organization. So it's not just for you yourself. So in a good project, you should demonstrate a variety of skills. Okay, so some people are extremely good in databases. Okay? So obviously you want to show off your databases skills, but you should show off other skills. You should show that you are an IT professional with a range of skills, and you are not just a one-trick pony. Yeah? You should also demonstrate originality and creativity. Okay? You don't want to do what everybody else has been doing. Hopefully you will bring something a bit more than anybody else. You should also be able to demonstrate critical thinking. So you are going to face a client, possibly, and they are going to ask you for the moon. They don't know anything about IT. So obviously they want something shiny which can do everything. You are the IT specialist, the professional, and you have to tell them, no, that you cannot do. It's not reasonable. In 6 months' time, I cannot develop that part. You know, that's a 3-year project. Or maybe you will find some clients who have a very low level of expectation. They've been working on a system based on paper for decades, and they don't know what the IT world can offer to them. So you are the one who should be pushing them, you say, because they are going to ask you something very basic, and you say, no, but I can offer you that as well. Okay? So critical thinking is very important. And you need also to choose the best solutions to a specific problem. Eventually, you are going to submit a report, hopefully which will be a coherent, well-structured report, which will be around 50 pages. Okay? So that's another important delivery. And at the end of the day, you are going to demonstrate that you are able to go from understanding a problem to delivering a solution. And that's the main skill that an employer will be looking for. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Okay, so how to get started? So, as you know, we had a first lecture in April, where most of you came. And we started early because we wanted you to spend time making decisions about what would be the topic of your project. We wanted you to have time to look at possible clients. We wanted you to be able to select your supervisor, to make sure that they had the expertise you required. All that is in the past. Okay, there were some deadlines. People who took advantage of that got the supervisor they wanted. Other people who didn't express any preference got allocated supervisor randomly. Okay. So first of all, if you haven't done it yet, you need to understand what kind of project you want to work on. Okay. And the project will depend on your abilities. Okay, so if you are a great programmer, maybe you would like to design some kind of to code a piece of software or something like that. If you are more into networking. Obviously, we would like to work on the design of some new network. And also it depends on your ambitions, okay? And that's very important because the project you will choose in the next couple of weeks when you are going to submit your proposal somehow will put a limit on the type of mark you can get, okay? Because if you offer in your proposal a project which is not very ambitious, okay, even if you do everything perfectly, you are not going to get an A. Okay? If you do let's say a simple website, a database with 3 tables and standard functionalities, recording a few items and reading some items from a database, that's not a project which is going to show advanced skills. Okay? So that's extremely basic. So if you are making a project proposal around that type of project, you should be aware that, okay, if I do everything perfect as expected from the proposal, maybe I will get a C. Okay. On the other hand, maybe you are very ambitious and you want to do that system with virtual reality, some 3D graphics and all that fancy stuff. And from the proposal, we can see this project has a potential for an A. Okay. On the other hand, if you are targeting something too complex, too high, you have a higher risk of failure. Okay, so it's good to say, yeah, I'm going to do everything fancy, 3D graphics, 3D sounds, and virtual reality, and so on. And at the end, you are not going to be able to deliver, and you are just going to fail your project. Okay, so it's very important for you to be aware of your abilities and what are your ambitions. And also what are your constraints. Okay? I mean, every year there are students, you know, they are struggling. They have families, they have a part-time job, which takes quite a lot of time. And they tell me, you know, JC, this year I have so much on my plate. The only thing I would want really is to pass the module. You know, if I pass, I'm happy. You know, because I have so many things to do, and we make sure that the project is designed so that they can pass, so that they don't have to overstretch themselves in order to complete the project. Okay, so there is no point being judgmental. Everybody has different abilities and a different environment and constraints, but it's very important to make it clear to your supervisor. Okay. During your first meeting, you should explain to them, you know, that's where I want to go. And that's where I am good at. And that's what I really hate, and I don't want to do much of that because I will not enjoy it. I'm not going to get a good mark because of that. Okay? So you will have to choose first if it's going to be a build, a design, or a research project. And I'm going to define in greater detail the 3 categories soon. Then what is the topic? Okay. So are you crazy about virtual reality, e-commerce? You are very involved in some community, your church group or your sport group or whatever, and that's where your passion is. And that's maybe the place where you want to develop your project. Okay? Because as I say, motivation is key. And if you have knowledge on a specific topic, that will help you as well. Obviously, it's the topic that we knew now, or the topic you want to learn for your future. If your ambition is to work for Google, maybe working on a project which has to do with searching would help. Obviously, the topic has to fit within your course. Okay, so if you are doing computing with networking, we are expecting you to do a networking project. And otherwise, it doesn't make much sense. And again, when you go to your employer, they will say some kind of mismatch between your degree and your project, and that may be difficult to explain. So what you really want to do, if you haven't done it yet, is to have a good chat with your supervisor. Okay, they have been supervising possibly hundreds of students. I've supervised hundreds of students. So I have a good idea about how long it's going to take to complete the project or your idea, the idea you have in mind. And it's very important. Is it suitable for a final year project? Is it too simple? Yeah, no, you are going to complete that in 1 month. That's not a final year project. That's a small piece of coursework. If you complete that, you are not going to pass. It's too easy. Or some of the students are coming with very ambitious projects. You know, yeah, I want to program a robot which can walk in the street and avoid obstacles. And I say, that's a very good project as a PhD project. That's a 3-year full-time project for someone who have already had a first-class degree. But as a final year project, that's too much. Okay? If you have that type of goal, you are going to fail. So you need to discuss these things with your supervisor, and hopefully your supervisor will be able to offer you alternative. If your project is too small, they will say, yeah, what about adding that, and that? Or if it's too big, let's cut and just focus on one aspect of your big and maybe good idea. Okay. Also, every year I see students who come up without any idea at all. Okay. So they've been spending the summer looking inside their head for what kind of project I could do, and they came up with nothing. Okay? I mean, it happens, and again, that's the time when you need to see your supervisor, and the supervisor will try to get out of you some hint on what kind of project. You know, what do you like? What are you good at? What about doing something like? And hopefully together you will build the start of an idea and eventually a project. Okay, so the role of the supervisor is very critical in that part of choosing your project, making sure that there's the right complexity in line with your abilities, ambitions, circumstances. So the support for your project, so you are the manager, but you are not working on your own. So obviously you have your supervisor. So as I said, they are not going to be a manager, they are just going to be a guide. Okay? They have been through maybe hundreds of projects. They know about the different phases, they know at which pace you should be moving forward. So they will be there to help you with, first of all, the project management, setting regular objectives. They may also help you technically, and if they cannot help you technically, they will direct you towards the person who can answer your questions. Because some projects really requires a wide range of expertise that maybe one lecturer will not have. Okay? So the supervisor is just providing advice. They are not providing instructions. Yeah. Eventually, you are the one who are going to take the decisions. You are the one responsible of the project. So the role of the supervisor is not to chase you, send you emails, you know, yeah, we haven't seen you for a long time, what have you been doing? Some supervisors do that, the nice ones. But in principle, you are the project manager, and you are the one who should say, I need my supervisor now, because I need some support for taking a decision and so on. Okay? But eventually, the project is your own responsibility. So the interaction with your supervisor. So first of all, you must have in your timetable a group meeting organized on Tuesday between 1 and 2 p.m. Okay? It's a group meeting, it's not a lecture. Okay, so it's a very interactive activity where people present their latest progress, their obstacles, and together you try to deal with that, or you look for advice on certain points. Okay. We organize centrally those group meetings for all students, all supervisors, on Tuesday at between 1 and 2 p.m. And there are rooms which have been allocated to that. Obviously, one size doesn't fit all, so maybe your supervisor has contacted you and told you, actually this Tuesday between 1 and 2 is not working well for me, let's move that to another day, or I would prefer to have individual meetings because I think it would work better. So that's the general offering, but maybe your individual supervisor will offer you something slightly different. Okay. What is important is that you have a point of contact, that there is good interaction with your supervisor. At least you know that the supervisor will be available during that time. In addition to those group meetings, you will have individual meetings. Again, you are the one contacting the supervisor. You are the one with a problem. You are the one who is not sure about something, or you have completed a task and you want some support in order to know what is the next task. Okay? Or maybe you will have produced a draft of your proposal. You will have submitted to your supervisor for early feedback, and you want to meet with your supervisor in order to know how to improve that proposal. And obviously, interactions do not need to be only face-to-face, can be by email, phone, and depending on the supervisor, they use WhatsApp, Skype, and all those latest technology. The expectation, okay, is to have 2 quality interactions with your supervisor every month. Okay? So, for example, those group meetings have been timetabled every week. You don't need to go every week. Okay? What we are expecting is that you are going to meet or have a good interactions, positive interaction, not just hi in the corridor. Yeah? 2 interactions a month. Okay? Obviously, it will depend on your needs, your specific needs, and the period of the year. You know, if at the moment you are still designing the topic of your project, it is worth meeting your supervisor more often. Maybe at some point, maybe after Christmas, when you know exactly what you are doing, you have to develop a good piece of code, maybe you don't need to see your supervisor for a whole month, or just exchange a couple of emails saying, yeah, everything is fine, I'm making good progress. But the expectation is twice a month. So in terms of support, apart from your supervisor, you have the lectures. So this one is part of that series of lectures. During the first teaching block, you will get a set of 9 lectures. Okay. Then we will have a break for some time because initially we are going to tell you what we are expecting from you, some help about the proposal, the prototype you are going to, the prototype you will have to develop, or how to do a good literature review and so on. But after a while, you know what to do, and you have to go get on with the job. Okay, so there is no point having those lectures anymore. And then at the end of teaching block 2, when we will be expecting you to be working on your report, that will be the time we will give you advice on how to write a good report, tell you a bit more about the viva, which means the oral presentation that you have to give at the end as well. So most of the lecture at the beginning and a few at the end to get you ready for the time when you will be assessed. As I said, your supervisor may not be or may not have the expertise on all aspects of your project. So eventually, any member of staff at Kingston is someone who could support. Can be academic staff, but they may be technicians. So there will be lecture notes which will be put on study space. My slide will be on study space shortly after the presentation. And as I said, we are filming those lectures, so which means that you can go back to those lectures if you miss them or if you want to go back to a point. And also we will be making available some lectures we made last year. So some lectures were a bit more technical about PHP, UML, some specific points that you may want to refer to when you are working on your project. And obviously there is a library. People are very helpful there. They are really good at helping students working on their literature review in particular. And you have plenty of electronic resources I can install and on the internet, obviously. Okay, so in terms of assessment, as I said, there are 3 types of projects. Design, build, and research. First of all, we are asking you to generate a project proposal. So deadline is in a couple of weeks. And that's really your contract. Okay? That's what you are offering to deliver at the end of your project. We will speak more about it in 10 minutes. And that will count as 10% of your final mark. Okay. So it's already quite an important piece of work, and that's why this lecture is quite important, to make sure that you have the right project and you know what is expected from you in terms of the proposal. Then you will be expected to give an early prototype demo. Okay. So that will be just before the winter break, just a few weeks before Christmas. You will have finished teaching .1. So in principle, you will have already completed many of your tasks for your project. So you will have to demonstrate what you will have completed by that time. Okay? So that will be an oral presentation, a meeting with your supervisor, where you will be presenting what you have done. Hopefully you will have done some basic implementation, you will have set up a database, you will have already possibly a website with some functionalities working, or a piece of software which was already doing something useful. Okay? It's an early prototype, so it will be far from being complete, but it's a very important point in the year, because we will have a good idea if you are able to deliver what you promised. Okay? If we are going back to my example of this shiny application with 3D graphics, virtual reality, and everything else, but that time you should have already demonstrated that you are able to do some kind of 3D graphics. If you haven't managed by that time, maybe that was not the right project for you. And maybe you should scale down seriously what your project is about. Okay? So for that early prototype demo, it's worth 5% of the final mark. So it's not many points, but it's very important because that's a place where we know if you're on the right tracks or not. And that's why many students will not have much holidays afterwards because they will realize that they are far behind. By that time, you should have worked already more than 100 hours on your projects. Eventually, the biggest part is the report. So for students involved in either design and build projects, the report will be worth 70% of the final mark. Okay. If you are doing a research project, it will be worth 60% of your final mark. Then you have the viva, so that's an oral presentation when you will be presenting your project and the artifact that you will have generated, a piece of software, a piece of design, or whatever. For design and build projects, it will be 10% of your final mark. For the research project, it will be 20%, because the presentation in a research context, you will have a panel of experts which will ask a question about your research. You claim that you have generated something that nobody else in the world have done, but I've seen something that MIT has done, which is very similar. Tell me what is the difference between your two systems. Why your system is better? Why do you claim that your originality in your system? Okay, so while the Viva for design and build will be half an hour in time, for the research project it will last 1 hour. Okay, so that will be can be tough grilling, okay, because you will have experts in the field trying to understand what's new and criticize and so on. Maybe those people will be, some of them will be your competitors. And finally, you will get a mark that we call a progress mark, which is 5%. Okay. So this progress mark is about your interactions with your supervisor, okay? Because eventually you are expected to work in a company or an institution, and you never work on your own. Okay, you are always in some kind of team. And in the case of the final year project, a member of your team is your supervisor. So interaction with your supervisor is important. So that will be part of the progress mark. And you will go at also part of that progress, it will be how well you have managed the project. Okay. Some students, are very, let's call them geek. They set up the project and disappear for 6 months, and they come back with something fantastic. Okay. Which means that in terms of project management, they have done extremely well. They have managed to organize their time, their tasks, and they have delivered. In terms of interaction with the supervisors, they have done rubbish. Okay, so they will get high mark on one side, low mark on the other side. Ideally, you would like you to be able to work in a standard company where you have colleagues and so on. So interaction is important, and project management is important as well. So for the proposal, so the deadline is the 14th of October. And we are expecting a document which is between 1,500 and 3,000 words. You have a question?
Why has the deadline been brought forward? Last year was the 20th of October.
Because the year has started earlier. This year, the first week has been in September. We are still in September. My last year, it started in October. Yeah. It's just that we started the year a bit earlier, so that's why it's a bit early. Nothing sinister. You have as many weeks as students had last year. The early prototype, as I said, should be demonstrated before the Christmas break. Okay. So in that case, you have to organize yourself with your supervisor and find a suitable date. I'm not going to do all the demos the same day. Okay. So organize yourself for the last week of the year, the academic year, to find a time, a slot for presenting your work. The report itself is quite a big document, as I said, close to 50 pages, so 2,000 to 18,000 words. Okay, so that's a major piece of work, and it's advisable to start early. So again, that's where your supervisor will be able to guide you. Okay. Ideally, you should have started working on it before Christmas, okay? Because you are going to start your project possibly with your literature review. If you have completed your literature review, that's one chapter for your report. Yeah? So it's not a good idea to do the literature review now, not taking any notes, and come back in April saying, oh, I have to write a section about the literature review, and have to reread all the documents again and again. The Viva, as I said, will be 30 to 60 minutes, depending if it's design, build, or research. Again, we have a deadline in May, early May, but the dates will vary depending on how you organize yourself with your supervisor and second marker. And then there is the progress mark. So the progress, there is not a fixed delivery. It's your general behavior in terms of interaction and project management during the whole time of the project. And your supervisor will be marking you once all the deliverables will have been provided. Yeah? Everything clear? Good. So your first marker, who happens to be your supervisor, will be marking any piece of work you will be doing. Okay, so they will be marking your proposal, your report, your Viva, your demo, and they will be giving you the mark in terms of progress. Okay? So which means that interacting with that person is very important. You need to have an understanding of what are their exact expectations, because they are the ones who are going to mark you in the first instance. Okay? However, there's a second marker as well. Okay? So, but the second marker will only mark the final report and will be marking the Viva as well. Okay, so the first marker will mark everything and look at your progress during the year. The second marker will just come at the end of the project, read your report, attend your Viva, and give you an independent mark. So you will get, for the report and the Viva, which is in total 80% of your mark, you are going to get two sets of marks. Generally, the two markers agree with each other without consulting each other, which is great, and that gives you a mark. Sometimes they come up with different opinions. We are all humans after all. And in that case, we'll ask a third person to mark your work again. Okay. Eventually, with the opinions of three people, we'll be able to decide what is the actual quality of your work.
Can we choose the second marker?
No. The second marker will be selected randomly. And it will be selected very far in the year. Okay? So it will be selected at some point in April or May. So you cannot start logging your second marker during the whole year to have an understanding of what they want. Okay? You need to understand that your report will be marked by your supervisor and another professional. So in terms of feedback, so you will get some feedback, obviously, each time you are going to see your supervisor. You will get some feedback each time you will be providing some kind of delivery. So if you see your supervisor face-to-face, obviously you are going to get oral feedback. If you send them some question by email or draft document by email, again, it's likely that they are going to give you written feedback. For every piece of work which is delivered, and we'll be using Turnitin for reports and so on, there is a specific project information system where you will be able to log in and see for each criteria what are the comments of the marker and what mark you got. clear understanding of how your piece of work has been assessed. So it will be looking like that. So that's in your project, that's the proposal. So you have a set of criteria, you have a set of boxes with some feedback, and at the end you will get a mark. Okay. So you will have a good understanding of why you got that mark, and maybe what you should be doing in order to improve next time. The system is not up and running yet. Very soon we will provide you with a login so that you can check your marks. I mean, you will not get anything before you submit your proposal. You submit your proposal, and within 3 weeks, your supervisor will have marked it. They will give you the comment and the mark. So feedback is really important. It's a very important element of learning. Okay, so that there are some places where you get only 1 mark for the project at the end. You say, let's go and see you again in 6 months' time. Let's see what you have generated. Here we believe that thanks to the feedback you will get through the proposal, through the prototype, and through your individual meeting, you will be learning about your strengths, weaknesses, and what to do in order to improve so that next time you will do better. So, as I said, we believe that feedback is an essential part of effective learning. And hopefully, good feedback that we'll be providing you should enhance your learning and eventually allow you to improve your performance. Yeah? So the question is, what is good feedback? And that's quite a difficult topic. And we have been discussing between ourselves, the academics, and we are also receiving suggestions from students, because sometimes we believe that you are expecting some kind of feedback and it's not the one you want. Okay? So I would like to have some kind of understanding of what kind of feedback you would like. Okay? Because it feels that some students, what they really want is to get a mark as soon as possible. Okay? They submit a piece of work. If they get a number the following day, that's fantastic. Okay? Some other students, they want a whole essay about what has been good and bad in their project. However, in order to generate that essay, we will need a couple of months in order to write that essay for everybody. Okay, so there's some kind of compromise, and a lot of feedback in a very quick turnaround is not possible. Okay. So, as I say, some people would like quick response. Okay. You don't need to go into the details. Don't tell me, yeah, my work is worth a B, a C, a D, and here are a couple of points, and I'm happy with that. I don't need more. Some students, what they would like is, what is the solution to the problem? Okay, you said that it was not well written. Give me an example, a copy of what would be a perfect proposal. Some prefer detailed comments. Some prefer maybe bullet points. But here are the positive points, here are the negative points. Doesn't need to be redacted in a very literature. It's not literature. Some just interested in the mark. They receive feedback, they don't care anyway. They want is the number. Okay? And maybe you want something else. Okay? So I would like just to have your opinion of what kind of feedback is the one you would value the most. Okay? Because we want to make sure that we are providing you something useful that will help you in your studies. We believe that what we are doing is the right thing, but we still want to learn from you. Maybe you are going to tell us that's not what we want something else. So let's have a quick vote. Okay, just raise your hand. Who believe that the ideal feedback would be option number 1? Okay, that's not very popular. Option number 2. Yeah, a few people, but not that many. Yeah. So maybe that can be addressed by providing you a piece of coursework which were generated last year, maybe an example, some template of successful piece of work, and make you available that work. You know that you have already access to all the final year reports from last year. They are at the libraries, on the electronic system. And we only put up there the good ones. Okay, so you are not going to see any rubbish one. So if you need some examples, you can already use that system. Who would vote for option number 3? Yeah, quite a few who like detailed comments. Obviously, the drawback is you will have to wait a bit. Okay, you cannot get detailed comments in 1 week. What about number 4? That looks like the most popular one. Okay, so somehow you want, I assume, getting a mark and some comments relatively close to the date of submission. You don't want to wait 3 months for getting them. But you are happy to have maybe more of a bullet point type of comments so that you know exactly what is good and bad. Yeah? Who is only interested in the mark? Yeah? A few people. Has anybody any suggestions that haven't listed? Yeah?
The thing is, if you want to submit out a project or something, you expect you are going to have B. You only want to know the market if you want B.
Yeah.
That's our project you were having in mind. So if you did worse, you would like to know why you did worse. So maybe when you submit the work, you could submit what you expect to get.
Okay. No, that's an interesting proposition. You could send and you could say, yeah, for that piece of work, I was not really at 100%. I didn't do too much. It was a rush. So I'm expecting to get a C, and that's what I deserve. And no, it happens. Or I really work hard, and I really believe that it should be an A. And the comments could reflect on the expectation you formulated. Now that's a very good point. I will write it down and see if we can do something around that, because that's very sensible. Anybody else has a good suggestion? No? Okay. So I feel that the largest group was around option number 4, but quite a few were on option number 3 as well. Okay. Yeah. So you definitely want some comments. You don't just want a number or a few words. And then the amount of comments should be from reasonable to possibly a bit more. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully we are going to be able to deliver that. You will tell me, okay, after the comments you receive from the proposal, if you feel that you didn't get enough. So either it's a general issue, is that our processes don't ask enough comments from the lecturers, or maybe they're specific to your lecturer. Maybe there are some lecturers who tend to say not to write much, and in that case, if you feel it's not right, please let me know. And if I see that several students from the same lecturer are saying that the lecturer is not writing enough comments, then I can go back to the lecturer and say, really need to change that because the expectation is different. Yeah. So it's important to do that early. We will have the proposal. So in a couple of weeks you will be submitting, you will get your comments, and you feel if it's not what you are expecting, let me know, and we can correct that during the year so that you get your expectation in terms of feedback for the other pieces of work. Okay, so that was an introduction about the project and how you will be assessed. Now I would like to spend a bit of time on the type of projects, okay, because...
Break?
No, no break. Sure, you
said we would.
I never said anything. I mean, if 200 people disappear, we are going to lose 15 minutes, so it's not going to work. And it's not going to last 2 hours. You should be able to survive. Okay, so there are 3 types of projects. The one we call build, design, and research. And as you have seen already, the research projects are marked in quite a different manner, because the viva is much more important, the project is a bit, the report is a bit less important. But there are also other differences between the marking of the 3 types of projects. So it's very important that you have a good understanding of what is expected in that 3 types of projects. So when you choose a build project, so we are expecting at the end of the project, you know, some kind of application. So it's going to be a website, an app, a piece of software, a video game, something, you know, that a third party, a user can use and see some benefits out of it. So, for example, it could be an image processing software. Okay, now you have those apps which takes a picture only when people are smiling in the photos. Okay? That could be some kind of project that we would call a build project. Can be maybe a video game. That's a typical build project as well. It can be an e-learning system. Okay? Or it might be a website designed for example, a specific client. So I think the understanding is in a build project you have some kind of implementation at the end, some serious implementation, and you have some kind of final product that can be used. Okay, so that's what the build project is about. So that's how the build project is going to be marked. Okay? So obviously you will have some kind of introduction and literature review with a set of expected sections and techniques that you will be using. And introduction literature review is 10%. Then you have obviously some analysis of what are the requirements for that project. And here for the build project it's only 10%. Design, again, it's only 20%. Most of the points will be eventually in the implementation. Okay? 30%, that's where you are going to show off typically your programming skills. Okay? Obviously, you cannot show off good implementation if you didn't have an appropriate design, but we are expecting more depth, more advanced level in the implementation part. Okay? And obviously the implementation needs to be tested and evaluated. So tested is basically demonstrating that it's bug-free, yeah? Or at least to understand where are the bugs, or which functionality is not working. Evaluation is typically your client or your expected users. They ask you to generate a piece of software. What is their opinion about your software? Or you said that you would generate a fantastic video game. Ask 10 students to play that game and give their opinion. Is it a good game? Okay? Or an e-learning system. Ask other people, possibly students or friends or family, to try your system and tell them, yeah, I like the design, I know it's very smooth, I don't need to read a 20-page manual in order to use it, good response time, and so on. Okay? So basically 50% is really about the software that you have produced, software or website that you have produced. What are the technical details and how good did you do? In a design project, yeah?
So those marks, where are they actually? Those marks, where are they actually based in the final report? Where would they be allocated?
What do you mean?
These marks. So how are they allocated in the final project?
So using those marks, you will get a number between 0 and 100. And this number will represent, if you do a design or a build, 70% of your final mark. Yeah? So that's the, yeah?
How do you get the other 10%?
The 10% is about the conclusion and the critical review. Okay, so the critical review is how did the project go? If I had to do it again, what would I change? Okay, so that's a part that you wouldn't use in a professional context, okay, because that's secret. That's where you are going to say, yeah, I've been lazy for 3 months, and that was not a good strategy. Then I have to work really hard every weekend in order to catch up. And that will be part of the critical review. And here it's about being honest, okay, and showing that you have learned from the mistakes. And everybody is going to make mistakes. I mean, managing a project is the most difficult thing ever. I mean, you look at all the big projects that governments have, you know, they have to build a stadium and it's 1 month behind delays, or it costs twice what was expected. Always something goes wrong, okay? So you will get something going wrong, that's fine, and you will discuss that in the critical review, okay? So that's, we will see your maturity in terms of project management. How would you do it all over again? What would you change to make sure that you have a successful or better outcome? Okay? So that would be the last 10%, and you have that for all type of projects. So the design project, so it's not about generating a piece of software, an application, okay? It is to analyze, to generate the analysis and the design of a problem, and eventually demonstrate that your design is sound, okay? So one way of demonstrating that your design is sound is to do a full implementation, or is to demonstrate that the main concepts are working. So typically, if you are doing the design of a complex website, maybe you will do some basic implementation using some content management system. Okay? So the structure of the website will have been designed using advanced concepts, techniques that you will have learned in Kingston for 3 years. The implementation, you are not using any advanced techniques, you are just using WordPress or whatever. So you are not going to get points for the technical points, but at least it will show that your design is sound. It's not just some idea which is floating into the air. Okay? So it's about modeling, it's about simulation. So you could design an information management system. It can be network design because usually you don't connect the cable yourself. Or it can be maybe something a bit more theoretical. Okay, how would you deal with a business information system, for example? Okay, but again, I want to remind you that you are doing a technical degree. Okay, so we are not interested in a project which would be just a long essay. You have to demonstrate some technical skills. Okay? So if you are doing a build, obviously you are going to demonstrate some development skills, programming skills, but it's likely you will have to demonstrate some UML skills as well, and maybe some database skills. Okay? Or you are going to do some SWOT analysis, some Moscow, and so on. For the design, it's the same story. You have learned some techniques in order to generate the analysis or the design of a problem. And we want you to show that you are experts in those techniques. Okay? Maybe you are not going to demonstrate much programming skills, that's okay. You need to demonstrate technical skills. Okay, so a good literature review is great, and there is a mark for the literature review, but that's not going to allow you to pass a final year project. It's just one element. Eventually, you have to demonstrate technical skills. So, in the design, the marks are more at the beginning of the cycles. So here for the literature review introduction, it's 20% of the whole mark instead of 10%. The analysis, again, is more important, and here it's 20%. And what is very important is, since you are, the weight of the project is more on analysis and design, the interaction with your client is really critical. If you want to demonstrate very good skills for capturing requirements, if you don't have a client, you cannot demonstrate good functional requirement skills. Okay? If you are just looking at yourself in a mirror and say, what would be nice in the project? Yeah, to do that. Yeah, I agree with myself. That's what I want to do. You are not demonstrating advanced skills. Okay? Because getting an understanding of the requirements of a client is very difficult. You can imagine that you have a client which doesn't have any understanding about the IT world. So they are going to express their problem in plain English, and you are the IT specialist, the designer, and you will be able to convert that plain English into an IT jargon, which means, yeah, you need a database for doing that. Your client doesn't know that they need a database. They're unlikely. So you are going to produce your design, and then you have to go back to your client and try to show them that what you have designed is answering their question. And if you give a UML diagram to your client, they're just going to run away. Okay? So all that work of interaction with the client is quite important in the design project. Okay, I put it in red. In the analysis, we are expecting what are the cost benefits to the clients, requirement analysis, client interaction. So if you do a design project and you don't have a client, you are a bit limited in how far you are going to go in terms of mark. Okay? Because you are not going to be able to demonstrate advanced analysis skills, and some aspect of the design will be limited because you will not have this conversation with your client. It's less the case with the build project, because So we are asking less in terms of skills at the analysis and design levels. Yeah, is that clear? So the design itself, obviously, is 30%. So that's where the big points are. And you will be asked to use a variety of technical methods like building flow charts and so on, building some different types of diagrams, wireframes for your system and so on. And as you can see, the implementation is just 10% in that case. Okay? So you are not expected to do much development. Maybe a content management system will be enough, or maybe you are going to use a simulator and you are going to enter your data there, demonstrating that your design makes sense. And again, following the implementation, you have your testing and evaluation. And again, since it's only a prototype or a simulation, not much points are to gain there. Okay? So you can see that the two types of projects are quite different. Generally, people who are on information system course tend to go for design. People who are in software engineering, computing science, tends to go on a build. But it's not impossible to go in the other category. But that's the most natural choices. So again, to reiterate the differences between design and build, because what we have discovered through the year is that some students say, yeah, I'm going to do a build project. And the deadline in May arrives, and they didn't manage to finish the implementation. So they go back to the supervisor and say, oh, actually, it was a design project. I was not supposed to do all that implementation. Okay? But obviously, it's going to be a rubbish design project because their analysis part and the design part will be quite poor. Okay? So it's really a decision that you have to take early in the project, at the time of the proposal. Am I going to do a design or build project? Okay? So a design project is not an incomplete build project. Okay? It's not a project which has no implementation and no testing. You still need to demonstrate that your design kind of works, kind of makes sense. Okay? So at least you need a simulator or you need a content management system to see that everything is in place so that some testing can be, evaluation can be done. If you are doing a design project, you need to follow some very clear principles from the very beginning. It's not a project which is suitable for hackers. Okay? So hackers, they don't spend much time in analysis, design, they just go on the machine and they code. Okay? And for some people, it does work very well. Okay? And if you choose a build project, you may not get some great mark on the analysis and design parts, but on implementation, you will get a great mark, and maybe in the evaluation as well. So it will be okay, and you will still get a good mark. When you are working on a design project, you cannot work in an ad hoc manner. You really need to follow a clear methodology. And you need to provide some kind of narrative. It's not, yeah, I know about Moscow, SWAP, I know all those techniques, so yeah, one page is that technique, one other page is that technique. Okay, and what do you do? What is the outcome of all those techniques? Are you using them independently? How do they inform your project at the end? Okay, so it's not just saying, yeah, I can do a UML diagram. I can do that. No. There must be a story. Why are you doing a UML diagram in your design? Okay, explain. And in order to doing that UML diagram, you did that initial study or investigation to know what would be the main object in your diagram, for example. And obviously, you need to demonstrate how you apply these principles, not just following them. Is to provide some evidence. And as I said, there is some validation of the design, which is very important. It's not just to provide at the end a huge diagram with arrows and boxes and say, that's the solution. That's not enough. Your client will not get anything out of it. You need to have some kind of way of demonstrating that generally that idea is working. You are not going to implement everything. Maybe you will be using a simulator, a content management system, but you need to show that the design, or at least part of it, is sound. Okay? Otherwise, we are not going to trust you. Yeah, that's too complicated. We have no idea if it would work or not. So for those type of projects, generally the ideas are coming from you. Okay? I mean, hopefully you have already all the ideas. Okay? You don't need more and you already know what you are doing. Some of you have done placements. So you have worked already in some company, institutions. You are aware of problems that needs to be solved. So maybe it's a good idea to speak to your manager and say, last year I was in placement, I could see that that could be improved. Could that be a final year project and you would be my client? Okay. Obviously, you have a whole network around you. Family, friends, association. Most of you have jobs already, involved in different communities. There are people who could be potentially your client. You have obviously some interest, sport, culture, anything, technology. The supervisor also can help you. I mean, earlier in the year, we submitted some projects. Some supervisor wanted a student to work on one topic or another. I mean, all that is gone. But if you are really short of idea, ask your supervisor, they may be able to help. But as I say, the best is to have a client, especially if you are choosing the design route. Okay? You will not get an A in a design project if you have no client. That doesn't make sense. Okay. Okay, so finally the third type of project is a research project. Okay. And research here means contribution to human knowledge. Okay, so that's why I put a photograph of Einstein. Okay. So it's not about going to the library and reading books and articles. That's not research in that context. Okay. So in that context, you need to think Nobel Prize. Yeah? So you want to do something that has never been done before. Okay? When I'm speaking about that robot, yeah, that may be a research project. I want a robot which can walk around and bring us a glass of water when you feel a bit thirsty. That could be the start of a research idea. Maybe a bit too complex, but we can work on that and make sure that it fits within the scope of a one-year project. You would be expected to use the most advanced technology. Okay, so if you are going to design some algorithm and stuff, you are going to do PHP or JavaScript. Here you are maybe more speaking about using C++, Java, or multi-core processors, or that kind of stuff. Deep learning, that's some stuff which is a start of a research project. So it must be scary because you are doing something that you haven't studied at Kingston. Okay? You are going beyond what has been studied. You are really pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. On the other hand, it must be very exciting. It will be challenging, so it's unlikely that you will be working 10 hours a week on the project. Maybe you will be closer to the double. Okay. It's really tough. But it can be very rewarding. I mean, in my experience, the research students who take a research project, the majority get A. Okay? Because they are pushing themselves and eventually they get there. Some of them get B because they are rubbish at writing their report. Okay? They did brilliant research, they designed fantastic algorithms, they are not able to write a decent report, the marks are going down, and eventually they get a B. Okay? Or they fail. And a large number of them just fail. Okay? Because it's really hard. Okay? If you feel that, your programming is not up to scratch, or your UML is just a bit below, or in database you can do okay, but not do advanced stuff, forget about the research projects. Okay? So that's really for students who are targeting a first. If you are not targeting a first, forget about it. The good thing is, in the past I've had students who did some fantastic work, and we presented that work in international events. Some conference in artificial intelligence. They did something fantastic. The community wanted to know about it. We sent a paper, it was reviewed by experts in the field, and we presented it. Okay. So it's great, for example, if you want to do a PhD. Okay. If you are interested in a research career, that may be your first step. Okay. And as I said, research is not about a literature review. It's really tough. If you are not sure about your project, it's not a research one. Okay. Research is about really hard work and a passion for something advanced. So it's about solving a problem that could not be solved before, generate a new type of algorithm, which is better for some reason, it's faster or more accurate, for example. Or you are going to analyze data using advanced techniques. Big data is quite popular at the moment. That can be the source of research project as well. So to get started, the project is not going to come from you. You are not an expert in artificial intelligence or in whatever topic. We are. Okay. In Kingston, all the lecturers have a research career and they are experts in their field. So you need to pick the right academic. You know that what kind of research they are doing, they are involved in, and they will tell you how to progress the field in their field of expertise. Generally, you need to start early. To be honest, if you wanted to do a research project, you would have already worked quite a bit during the summer doing some background research. Okay? If you want to do a research project on artificial intelligence, I would expect that you have spent the summer reading a few books on the topic. Yeah? So, except if you have, if you have been programming on your own, doing some advanced stuff on computer graphics and stuff, okay, let's do a research project taking advantage of those skills. But if you don't have extra skills of acquire new skills during the summer from what you learn as basic curriculum at Kingston, I think it's unlikely that you will be doing a successful research project. Okay, so now we are finishing this presentation with how to write a good proposal. Okay, so now I am assuming that you have a project. Okay, you have decided if it would be a build, a design, or research project, and you have an idea about what that project could be about. You have discussed it with your supervisor. They have told you that the project fits within the IT curriculum of Kingston University, and that it's reasonable to complete that project during the time of this year. Okay, so that's all the boxes you need to tick. When you have reached that point, you need to start writing your proposal. Okay? As I say, it's due in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's not a long report, okay? It's 5-10 pages, so there's still time, but the deadline is 14th of October at midnight. Yeah, 2 weeks. And it will be an electronic submission using Turnitin. Guys, it's such a shock. Okay, so the project proposal is not the start of the project. The project has started a long time ago, at least in April, when I told you start thinking about it. Some of you have come to Kingston because they had some idea in mind. You know, since they've been a kid, they've been dreaming of building that thing. You know. So they came to Kingston in order to learn the skills, and maybe now is the time to do it. Okay, so some people may have been thinking about their project for 10 years already. Okay. So proposal is therefore not the start, it's just the end of the initial process of defining that project. So as I say, the reflection about the idea may have taken already weeks, months, of years. As I said, you must have discussed it with your supervisor. Is it viable? Is the complex is in line with your ambitions and abilities? If you want to build a website with 3 tables, and it's a design project, you are not going to get a good mark, okay? And if you are not too ambitious, that's fine. You know, you just want to pass, that may be enough. But it needs to be clear that the complexity of the project will tell you what kind of mark you can achieve. Obviously, this reflection discussion is an iterative process. You may go to your supervisor, come up with an idea, and unfortunately, it's too big, too small, it's not within the scope of what you are expected to do, and you need to come back. Okay. The proposal also ideally should come back, should be submitted after you have already submitted a draft to your supervisor. Okay. Again, the supervisor is going to be the person who is going to mark you. So if they have seen your draft, given you some feedback, it's more likely that you will perform well in the final submission. Okay. Remember that each supervisor supervises over 10 students. So if you send your draft 2 days before the deadline, and the supervisor receives 10 drafts, it's unlikely you will get some feedback on time before submission. Okay? So you need to think about that as well. So the deadline is a Friday. I think that submitting your draft by the Monday is a secure policy. Okay? At least the supervisor has a couple of days to reply, and then you have a couple of days to address the feedback. You know? So maybe that's another deadline you should put in your calendar. It's not just the 14th. You should have sent a draft earlier. I would say you need to send something earlier. Even if you have done only half of it, send it in order to get some feedback. You know, if it's not complete, you will not get feedback on everything, but you will get feedback on something which allow you to improve. And that feedback will be be allowing you to perform better. So that proposal, as I said, it's an electronic document. It will be submitted through Turnitin. It has a specific cover sheet. It has a length between 1,000 and 3,000 words. Okay. That's the recommended length. If you are over 10%, it's okay. If you feel that it's really getting long, have a chat with your supervisor. They're the ones who are going to mark you. Okay? If they feel that your project proposal is worth 4,000 words because it's particularly complex or whatever, I'm fine with it. Okay? It's their decision. But better to discuss it because if they receive a proposal which is 20 pages, they may decide to read only the first 10. So as I said, it's 10% of the final mark. And it's already a good way to know if you're on the right track or not. Have you reflected enough on the project? Have you done enough research to be ready to start your project? So here is the cover sheet. It's already on Study Space. Please use it as a first page for your project. What is really important, apart from your details, guys, could you reduce the sound level because I cannot hear myself anymore, which is not good. So on the cover sheet, apart from your details, you have to decide what type of project you are signing for. Okay? So choose the right one, the appropriate one. Discuss with your supervisor if you are a bit unsure. And basically, that proposal and the information which is on that cover sheet is your commitment. I'm going to deliver a project whose title is whatever it is, and it will be of that given type. So the proposal itself will have 6 main elements. It will have an abstract, an introduction and background section, aims and objectives, some reflection about the technologies and the resources which are necessary for your project, which methodology you intend to follow, what is your work plan, and also a discussion regarding legal, ethical, societal, and security issues. Okay? We want you to be prepared to the real world. Okay? When you will be working for an institution, a company, those points are very important as well, even if they are not technical. And if your project is in collaboration, for example, with a company, they may want to keep the rights, intellectual rights of your project. Maybe they are going to pay you, and in exchange you are going to give them their rights. Okay? And because of that, there may be some confidentiality issues. Means that you don't want the result of the project to appear in the Kingston University Library 3 months after submission. If you want to keep your project secret because of those reasons, you have to tell us. Okay? And anybody obviously it will not be an absolute secret. You will need at least 2 people to read your project and mark it. But those people will sign a non-disclosure agreement saying, I've read it, but I keep it secret, I will not use the information, to make sure that your company knows that your work is not going to be shared with the world. So you need an abstract, and the abstract should have different elements. What is the context of the project? What is the problem? And what is the proposed solution? So an abstract doesn't need to be very long. 10, 20 lines would be sufficient. And here I am going to give you an example. It's a research paper that I published a few years ago. And part of that paper I had provided an abstract. So the context is, as you know, we now have videos everywhere in the streets. People have smartphones which can capture videos, and we would like to know if it can allow us to have to improve the security in our streets. Okay, that's the context. What is the problem? Many people have claimed that they have solutions, but it's very unclear because they have only used their algorithm in some very controlled environments. It's always indoor. There's only a couple of people. They have a crowd like maybe an underground station or something like that. So the problem is we are not really sure that the techniques which are available at the moment are appropriate for the real world. And though the solution is obviously, we are going to do some literature review about those techniques. We are going to select the best one. We are going to implement them. And then we are going to test them on a real case scenario in order to have some idea if they are suitable or not. Okay? So that's a typical abstract. Doesn't need to be much longer than that. Okay, so the introduction and the background should answer a set of questions. First of all, do you have a client? Who is your client? Tell us about your client. Is it a multinational company? Is it just someone having a corner shop? Is it a sport club? Who is your client? Tell us about your client. And what do they want? Why are they asking you to work for them? Who are the stakeholders? So who has interest in your project? You have interest, your supervisor have interest, but hopefully other people will have interest in that as well. And what is the topic or the topics you'll be dealing with? Is it e-commerce? Is it image processing? Is it networking? So what is the problem you will be addressing, and why is it important to address it? Okay. And what will eventually the stakeholders get from your solution? It's not just just a class exercise. You are doing your project for people. Okay, so they should get something out of it. And obviously you need to be able to understand how does it fit in the current environment. You are generating maybe a new website for booking rooms. What are the websites around for booking rooms? Are you aware of who are your competitors are? Why do you think that you can do better than them? What is your added value? At this stage, because it's just a proposal, you don't need to write a fully fleshed literature review, but you need to understand, to demonstrate that you have a good understanding of the environment of your project. Okay? You don't know everything about it, but you have an idea about your 2 or 3 main competitors, at least. Okay? Then you have to provide your aims and objectives. Okay? So the aims are broad statements. Okay? Something very general, something which is maybe not technical. I want to produce a website which will be allowing individuals to book rooms through the internet or through their smartphone. That's your aim. Okay? And so it's about the outcome of the project, now how you are going to do it. And then you have the objectives, and the objectives are the set of tasks, which may be technical tasks, which will allow you to perform and produce that aim. Okay? And those objectives needs to be smart, so they need to be specific. Okay? We need to have a good understanding of what you are going to do. Okay? It cannot be something general. Yeah, I'm going to build a website. That's not an objective. Okay? That's way too broad, too general. Each task needs to be measurable. Okay? How do we know that that task has been completed? Okay? So maybe your task is to produce first a literature review on website dealing with booking rooms. Okay? So it must be specific. A literature review, you are going to say, yeah, I'm going to do a literature review about articles which were published in the last 10 years in journals dealing with tourism. Okay? And it's very measurable. We know exactly, okay, it's 10 years, and it's all the articles within that period that you will be reviewing. Okay? It needs to be a realistic goal. Okay? You are not going to review everything which has been ever published on the topic for the last 300 years. So that doesn't make sense. So as I say, it needs to be achievable. It shouldn't be too much. So maybe if there's a lot of articles, you are not going to do the last 10 years, you are going to do the last 5 years. Okay. So it needs to be realistic. You said you will review all the articles, but you need to pay fees in order to get access to that journal. So maybe you are not going to review from that journal. You are going to do only the journals that Kingston University allow you to access for free. Okay? So you have to be aware of the resources that are available in order to provide, generate your goal. And then there is a type constraints. You have a task, and it has to finish at some point. Okay? You are not going to say, yeah, I'm going to do a literature review. Each time there is a paper, I'm going to review it. No, it has to stop. You know, by end of November, literary review out, analysis starts. Okay? Otherwise, you will never complete your project. So you need to, for your project, to have an understanding of what are the technology and the resources you need. Okay? Because you have to convince the person who is going to read your proposal that it's realistic. Okay? If you tell me, yeah, my project is about a booking system for hotels which are on the moon, I would say, yeah, there's no hotel in the room, it doesn't make sense. Okay? So you need to make sure that the resources are there. If you say, yeah, I'm going to do a study of what students in Kingston eat at lunch, I would say, yeah, where are the data? How do you know that what people are eating at Kingston for lunch? There's no data. Are you going to start a study interrogating thousands of people to understand what they do? No, that's not realistic. The resources are not there. You cannot do that project. The information is not there. So what are the resources? What technology are you going to use? Okay, you want to use web technology and you feel that maybe PHP is the most appropriate techniques because it allows you to do that, and that. So I've already spoken about the data. So at the end of the day, you have to convince the reader that your project can be achieved. You have an understanding of what is required in terms of technologies and resources, and you know where to find them. Okay? Otherwise, it means that your project is not feasible. And if you submit a proposal of a project which is not feasible, obviously the mark means that you have failed. Okay? It's not feasible. Your thinking hasn't been far enough. You cannot deliver that. Obviously, we are just starting the process, so you will say, yeah, PHP seems to be the right technology, and then maybe a couple of months down the line, you need some extra functionality that PHP cannot provide. You say, actually, I'm going to switch to Java. Okay? That's fine. It's not written on stone. Okay? It's a start. you feel that you can achieve your project by doing that, that, and that. You are going to learn during the process and you are going to change things. That's fine. But at least you should have an idea about the path. Obviously, you need to choose a methodology. So are you going to use some agile methodology, some waterfall or whatever? Not only you need to choose one, but you need to tell me why is the right one. Okay? Because there's not one methodology which is better than another. Depending on the team, the persons, and the project, one methodology may appear to be better than the others. And obviously you need to provide a work plan. You have all those objectives. Now I want you to provide a work plan, possibly a Gantt chart, telling us where you are going to complete those different tasks. When will you be working on them? And you may have some deliverables and milestones. Okay? So some deliverables are what Kingston University is asking you. We are asking you for an early prototype by Christmas. So that should be in your work plan. But maybe you want in January to produce a first version of your website that you will be showing to your client. That's another deliverable. Or maybe you are going to produce a literature review that you want to submit to your supervisor at the end of November. Other deliverables. Okay. All that has to do with project management, have an understanding of where you are going. As I say, we are not working in our bubble. Okay, we are in an environment. We have laws, we have ethics, we live in communities, and there are security issues that needs to be addressed. Okay? So for some projects, this part is particularly important if you are working with sensitive data. Okay? If you are working for a hospital, you will have a lot of legal issues, ethical and security issues. For other projects, it's maybe less relevant. If you intend to collect data from human subjects, you may have to ask ethics approval to the university. Okay? If you are storing data from individuals, we need to make sure that you are doing it right. It's especially an issue if you are dealing with people who are children, elderly people, people who are sick. That's really critical if you are dealing with that. As I said, there's the issue of confidentiality, property rights, if you are working with a company. The marking criteria is the same as what I presented as the main section of your project. Just a word about plagiarism. You are all going out? Why? And what? Is that a big deal? Shall I stop because it's 4 o'clock? Or shall I give you 5 minutes more so that you get all the information? You choose. So, a word about plagiarism. As you know, it's a very serious academic offense. It's always going to be challenged. As you know, we are using Turnitin. We are using other tools as well. Each time you are going to submit something, we are going to check if it's your own work or not. If Turnitin tells us there may be an issue, we are going to look into greater details. And if we discover that you have plagiarism some work, that's going to be very bad for you. You may be chucked out of the university and marked as a cheat for the rest of your life. Okay? Each time someone is going to contact Kingston University saying, oh, you had that person as a student, can you tell us something about them? Say, yes, that person was a cheat. Okay. No, it means that plagiarism is really serious. Okay? And at this, since now you are in final year, there is no excuse, you know about it. Okay? And Turnitin is really a fantastic tool, and every year, some stupid students, because you need really to be stupid to do that at this stage, plagiarize. Okay? And the best case scenario, they get a 0 and they are allowed to come back next year if really they have a good excuse. In the worst case, as I said, they are just out. No degree, no paper, nothing, and that will follow them for the rest of their life. So that's what I get from Turnitin. Here are the list of students, the piece of work they have submitted, and I get some nice percentages with colors. So here someone had 79% similarity. Okay? And what is great in Turnitin, it tells me where it's coming from. There is this work is coming from another university. For some reason, a lot of students tend to take work from Greenwich University. So someone did some work at Greenwich last year, they take the documents, they put Kingston on it, and they submit it. And obviously they get codes, and they have troubles. Okay? So, you have very much the details. For each paragraph, it tells you, yeah, those words are identical from the words of another document. So, it's not very difficult to know if someone has been cheating or not. Okay? So, a final word on referencing. If you are quoting someone and you feel that you cannot replace the word of that person, okay, that really using the exact word is the best way to convey the message, that's fine. But use double quotes and put a reference. And now you are okay. No more plagiarism. Yeah, I'm done.